Hi everyone, my name is Katie. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm launching a new series of videos with you, and that is called Friday Favorites. So this is an idea that my cousin Emily and I actually came up with while we were on our vacation, because we were talking about my channel and what I hope my channel will bring to people and what I want my channel to be. And we came up with this idea for weekly book review of one book that is a favorite read of mine. So whether that is a recent favorite, so a book that I just read, or maybe a favorite that I read before I was on YouTube, before I was even on Bookstagram, because I have read a lot of great books and they aren't necessarily ones that I've shared publicly. So I really just want to be able to give a book review and some book suggestions to people in kind of a shorter video format. So how the Friday favorite video is going to work is I'm going to just talk about one book, and then it might be one that you have read, it might be one that you've never read, and hopefully it might inspire you to pick up that book, or it might just be a great way for somebody who isn't really a rapid reader or somebody who reads a lot to pick up a book that they just didn't know a lot about. I do have a lot of people in my own circle of friends and family. I don't have a lot of people who are readers. So a lot of people know that I read a lot and therefore they come to me for recommendations. They might be somebody who just reads a book, while they're on vacation, or is just looking for, a book to take to the beach. They might not be as vivacious of a reader as I am. So I'm just hoping that these kind of Friday favorite videos will help point them in the direction and give them, just maybe a book that they're looking for. To kick off my Friday favorites, I'm going to talk about a book that I first read 2 years ago when it was released in February of 2018, and that is The Great Alone by Kristin Hannah. Now, I love Kristin Hannah. She's one of my favorite authors. This is not the first book of hers that I have read, but it is one of my absolute favorites of hers. It is marketed as historical fiction somewhat, but I don't really agree with that. Yes, it's set in 1970s, but when I think historical fiction, I still think like World War II or like prior to that. But I guess we are in the day and age where historical fiction is basically like anything before the 1980s, I think, or anything before present day. Like, I'm not even really sure what exactly the historical fiction timeline is for books, but that is kind of the genre for this book. Now, I don't know if you've ever experienced this feeling of reading a book and just having to sit with the feeling, like not really being able to fully articulate your thoughts, not being able to immediately put a star rating on a book, because you're just left with emotions and feelings and thoughts about a book. Almost like a book hangover is sometimes what we call it in the reading world. That was The Great Alone for me. When I read this book, I just had to sit with it for a couple days. Like, this book is everything that I wanted it to be. It was everything from Kristin Hannah that I loved. It was gripping, it was emotional, it was heart-wrenching. The story was beautifully written. The characters were loving, and I really, really connected with this whole book. So it's set in the 1970s. It's about mainly a family. So the father fought in the Vietnam War. He was a prisoner of war, and when he comes back from Vietnam, he wants to relocate his wife and his daughter to Alaska to kind of live off the grid, live minimally, and kind of escape it all. Maybe as a way to almost cope with his pain and his PTSD from being in the war. They run away to Alaska to kind of escape society. That doesn't stop them or prevent them from experiencing hard times. So there are some trigger warnings in this book that does deal with domestic violence. It does deal with abuse. So there's a lot of darkness in this book, and when I was reading it, it did have an effect on me. These are not things that necessarily trigger me, but I know that they might trigger other readers. So I do want you to be aware that this is a really, really hard-hitting book, but it's totally worth the read, I think, if you can manage to get through it, if it's something that you can handle. A major part of the story is the mother-daughter bond and relationship between Cora, who's the mother, and Lenny, who is the daughter. They're two peas in a pod, and they're being strong women in Alaska, and they're battling with this love that they have for their husband and father, but also wanting to be safe and wanting to stand up for themselves and not have to face darkness every day. The love between all the characters in this book is what I really, really loved the most. Like, the love is so strong. It's so unbreakable. There is a quote in the book, and it's not a spoiler, so I'm going to share this quote with you. You don't stop loving a person when they are hurt. You get stronger so that they can lean on you. Like, that is a quote that has stuck with me for a really long time, but it's also at what cost? Like, at what cost do you stand by somebody who may be harmful to you just because you love them? And I think that that might be a question that a lot of people have to ask themselves at some point in their life when they love somebody who may not necessarily be good for them. This book made me cry. This book made me smile. Like, I really, really love this book. I highly, highly recommend reading The Great Alone if you haven't read it already. It's a great, great book. I highly recommend Kristen Hanna. I'm sure this is not the only time that she will make an appearance in my Friday favorites video, but because this is a book that I literally read 2 years ago, I thought it was a great one to start off with. I'm going to end my Friday favorite videos with a couple of read-alike suggestions. So if you do go and read The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna and you enjoy it, these are a couple books that you may also like. One of them is Educated by Tara Westover. Now, Educated is nonfiction. The Great Alone is fiction. But the idea of the father kind of wanting to live a minimalist life and the events that happen to the families as they fall on hard times is kind of what makes this a similar read. And I have read Educated. I did enjoy it. There were some issues and some problematic things that I had with this book being nonfiction, but ultimately I do see that if you like The Great Alone, you might enjoy Educated. The other book that I would suggest as a read-alike is The Poisonwood Bible by Barbara Kingsolver. Now, I have not read this book yet, but it is on my TBR. I do own it. I have got a used copy at some point. And again, this is kind of a family saga. So it is about a family, and the parallel aspects between this and The Great Alone are, you know, it's about a family where the father decides to kind of uproot the family and start over in a new location. So The Poisonwood Bible actually begins in the Belgian Congo in 1995, whereas The Great Alone begins in Alaska in 1970. So those are two books that you might be interested in picking up if you do read The Great Alone, or if you have read The Great Alone and you want to experience something similar. Those would be some suggestions for you. So this is my first Friday favorite. It was a 5-star read. I highly, highly recommend it. If you've read it, please leave me a comment below. If you plan to read it and you hadn't heard of it, please let me know. And if you think that these Friday favorites are a great idea and you're excited about them, please also let me know in the comments below. And if you're liking what I'm doing, as always, hit that subscribe button because that does really help to support me. Give my video a thumbs up, and we'll see you in my next video. Bye.